a position. So we tried, for instance, just to give you a side issue here, we tried to put in a stonemasons program. And the gentleman who put in all of the work around the buildings, he was from Boone, and he offered to teach it free if I could get him 8 students. We could not get 8 students at free tuition to take the program. And then at that same time, if you tried to get a mechanic or a plumber or a carpenter to do any renovations or small jobs, it was costly. So I think at that time it didn't take anybody very long to realize that the hands-on technician, the blue-collar worker, was going to make the money. And of course we had in the community Holly Farms that was employing blue-collar people, and they were doing very well. So I firmly believe that the technical programs were meant to be, and we are seeing it now in the fruition of the evolution of the community college system, that the technicians they're living well. They're the only people, the white-collar people aren't working during a set season and going to Florida for the rest. The blue-collar people are.
That's very true. That's interesting. Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Dr. Randolph, do you envision a continued increase in the technical curriculum of Wilkes Community College as compared to your college transfer curriculum? And if so, why do you think that increased demand will continue?
Actually, the technical programs have leveled off over the last few years in terms of number of students enrolled, while the college transfer program has increased. In fact, it's increased substantially all the way from the early on going to the college. And really the college does more of a reacting to that problem than proacting. We have to respond to what's happening, the marketplace out there. We're finding, for example, that I believe that the recent increase in the number of transfer students has been caused by the universities primarily. The universities are raising their standards, and as far as admission, they're also getting more students who are applying to the universities. They're not able to take Appalachian State, for example, will receive 8,000 or so applicants for the freshman class and take 2,000. Those other 6,000 students will probably end up going to a community college for the first 2 years. And so that's a kind of a thing that's happening in our society today. The other problem that we have is that the technical programs are, as Dr. Thompson knows, are very difficult and very costly. You have to have laboratory space typically. You have to have equipment that's very expensive. You have to have personnel who are well trained and high cost personnel to teach in those areas. And so therefore it costs a lot of money to run a technical program, much more so than a transfer program. And so therefore when you do develop a technical program, you have to make sure that it's going to be a program that works and it's something that can go on. Also, the other part of that is that if you don't have a place for these students to go when they get out of your program, then you're training somebody for nothing, and you don't want to do that. So you have to look at what the job market is out there for these students. I think that probably North Carolina right now, and the whole system, is experiencing an increase in the number of transfer students as opposed to the technical. The vocational students, by the way, the one-year vocational students, is on the decline because more of those programs are moving into the technician area that would require 2 years of training rather than the 1 year of training. So that's going down, and the technical training is going up because of that. But I think overall, what we would need to have an increase in the number of technical programs and students that we have at the college would be to have industry move into our area, a large plant, a number of plants that would, high-tech type plants or manufacturing plants that would move into our area. Then we would be able to provide, that would be a job source for our students, and we could provide the training for those students. So a lot of times what happens to us is outside of our control. It happens out in society. It happens to decide whether a plant moves in or doesn't move in. All those kinds of things impact how we operate and what we do. So we sort of have to be flexible enough to go along with the flow.
That's it. Thank you, Dr. Randolph. Dr. Thompson, more emphasis has been placed on the technical curriculum at Wilkes Community College in recent years. With this in mind, what do you see as the future direction of Wilkes Community College?
Well, I can only guess. Of course, I have no part of the going. But I'm sure, because I can go way back, Roger, to where we had no college. And there was no place for the student who graduated from many of the high schools in the area to go. At one time there was, they could go into the draft. That was very uncomfortable. The girls, as they graduated, went to the large cities as secretaries, like. But the future of technical programs here, as Dr. Randolph said, they've had to change with the concept of the industry. So they have made their inroads. And of course I had a feeling for the turf management program. I had a feeling for the food processing, but I could see that after a while we could not place our graduates, even though they could go to some places like State and go on for a 4-year degree. But I can understand very well the dilemma, let us say, of a static technical program of studies. If they don't change with industry, then they're of no use, and the student will be left high and dry as if he didn't go to an institution of higher education. So I think the focus, as Dr. Randolph has said, has got to change with the attitudes of industry. And hopefully we can get industry in here that's more diversified and will change our programs. And the community college can change their programs very quickly. With staff that they have, it's very good.
Good. Thank you very much, Dr. Thompson. Dr. Randolph, do you agree with Dr. Thompson's forecast?
I do. He's right on target. Even though he's been away from the community college for 14 years now, he keeps up with what's going on, and he knows what's going on. And he's very accurate. We have to respond to local industry. If we don't, we do a disservice to that industry and also to the students that we have. The technical programs are, as I tried to relate to you, are extremely difficult for a college. Just to pose that to a transfer program, a university transfer program, that subject matter is fairly consistent. It's been there since I went to school and you went to school, Roger, and it stays fairly static. They do provide new training techniques and things like that, but it's that kind of thing where you take a technical program, very demanding, very intense in terms of equipment, high cost, typically low numbers of students, not large numbers of students. Some of that is required by us, like the nursing program, for example, a high cost program. We're restricted to the number of students we can have in the program, a very high cost program. And that's a difficult type of program to put on. I think what's happening is if I could just give you one example, Virginia, for example, just recently went through a large budget crunch, the state of Virginia. And this past year, it was reported that their community college system cut out 50 programs in the state of Virginia. All 50 of them, by the way, were in the technical area. And you wonder why. We think, well, that's terrible. They are not emphasizing technical programs. But a lot of those programs were no longer important to the local industry, or they were upgraded to kind of move into a technician area. So it's a tough one. It's difficult to run the technical programs, very difficult. They're very important, and they're going to be the real challenge, I think, for the state of North Carolina in the future. The real challenge.
What do you see as the future trend of technical programs as opposed to college transfer programs, with that in mind?
I think that there will, I believe, and Dr. Thompson probably can tell you this from a historic point of view, but I believe that there is a state law or state, at least some sort of a state feeling that you should only have so many technical students or so many transfer students versus technical. There's a proportion or a ratio that when they were converting the technical schools over to the community colleges, didn't they put something in there that said thou shall not have more technical or transfer students than technical students?
And they didn't like the terminology of community college.
So what's happening is that now a lot of colleges that were very strong technical colleges in the state, they had a general ed component. They offered the technical, the vocational, and a general education. They did not offer transfer. Very few of those colleges are left. They have almost all. In fact, just recently, Rowan Cabarrus, a school just north of Charlotte, has gone to offering now the technical or the transfer program. Surrey Community College, Guilford, I'm sorry, not Surrey, but Guilford in Winston-Salem, and that's Forsyth, I'm sorry. They just started their transfer program, and that's where the increases are coming, in the transfer area. And so around the state, I think the state's going to have to deal with this issue of sometimes saying, you know, where do we get to a point where we have too many in our transfer programs and not enough in our technical programs? And if they say that we're already at too many, then something's going to have to happen, and I don't know what that's going to be. But until we can have more money for equipment and more labs and more buildings with specialized labs, we are not going to be able to provide the type of technical training that industry really wants.
Dr. Randolph, finally, do you believe that the current focus of Wilkes Community College, as we've discussed earlier, coincides with its present and future direction?
I think so. I think that because of the base that was established back in 1965, 66, and many of the employees that Dr. Thompson hired in those first few years are still here at the college, by the way, and performing tremendous work, as I'm sure they did when he was president. And that nucleus of people that were here then and are here now try to provide a stability to the institution that will move us along, and I really believe will continue to make Wilkes Community College the college that it always has been, and it always has had a good reputation around the state, an excellent reputation for transfer and for technical training. And I think that that's going to continue in the future.
May I inject something here that
Sure.
might give you a lead to the future? When you look at the buildings that are in existence and go back to 1970, let us say, when buildings like this came in at $18 a square foot, that's number one. And when you look at the fact that there were only 41 technical institutes, IECs, and community colleges back in that time, there was more money to go around to the institutions. Dr. Randolph has to fight for every cent. We've had opportunities at night to have phone calls to ask us to take $200,000 in equipment money. I'm sure he doesn't get those phone calls now, but we had fewer institutions, it cost less to build them, and we had a lot more money because we were on the honeymoon. The honeymoon is over. There are 58 institutions now, and they have to fight for existence financially first, and then they go on with their subject matter. I think it's a lot to be said for the people who are operating institutions today. They really have to manage.
A little tougher ball game,
It
isn't it?
very much so.
Dr. Thompson, Dr. Randolph, on behalf of myself, my project assistant David Weevil, and Appalachian State University, I thank you both for your participation in 26 years of excellence, Wilkes Community College, 1965 till 1991.